Dennis Ciccone from Ciccone Family Chiropractic here. I'm so excited you're here to join us for tonight's Stress, Hormones, and Inflammation webinar. This is a webinar I've done hundreds, if not thousands of times. It's my most exciting webinar to present. It is where if a patient reaches out to me and they are just trying to get healthy, understand overall health, or just get back on track, this is a great starting point. I've been practicing just over 17 years. We help patients all over the country. So couple things before we get started. The more interactive you are tonight, the better results you'll get. So I'm going to recommend you get a pen and paper, write down some of the information, things that stick out with you. I'll even mention some things as we go through. The other thing is, obviously, I can't address every question in the webinar. We have hundreds, if not thousands of people on these webinars every month. I'm going to talk to the specific points that are the biggest questions that we want to get out of it. Dorian will be answering your questions in the chat. So be interactive, do as much as you can in the chat. Again, the more interactive you are, the more engaged you are, the better your results will be. And also, we are going to gift you with a free strategy call. So I will mention that a couple of times through the presentation, but that is a free call. It gives you an opportunity, and it's our solution to be able to answer any of those specific questions that we can't answer directly in a webinar format. So take advantage of that if you have questions, and I'm excited to get into it. So let's get into it. I want to start with a story. The first story I want to share is Gail. She's a patient that came into our office many years ago. She was frustrated, sick, didn't know what to do, could barely get out of bed, was losing her hair. She's a mother, she's a wife, and she was struggling with her health and just knew that things weren't the way she wanted them to be, and her husband knew the same. So they went to their medical doctor the way they should, and other people do. And the doctors did testing. They went through her insurance. They didn't find anything. So basically, the suggestion was either go home, it will get worse, and we'll find something eventually, or it's all in your head. There's nothing going on. How many of you can write in the chat, have had a similar story? Because I hear this all of the time. The doctor either says everything's good, all the labs look good, everything is all right. Yet that's not the case. So just share that in the chat. Just say, yes, that's me, if that sounds like you. But Gail and her husband, they refused to take that. So they decided to look further. They went to the inflammation talk, just like tonight. And then they decided to schedule a strategy call and a new patient visit with us. What we found with Gail were not only was she doing things that cause chronic inflammation, but she actually had infections in her body, 2 large infections that were causing damage to her hormones and not allowing her body to detoxify properly and damaging her gut. So this was causing systemic issues that were causing her body to break down, have immune responses, and just continue to make her sick. Yet these were things that the basic testing that insurance covers didn't find. So we brought her through a process that I'm going to talk to you about tonight, and we'll give some examples later tonight, what the testing looks like and what that involves, just so you have a better idea. But basically, we took Gail from very sick and not having any answers to being able to get to the place where not only was she healthy enough for herself, but she was healthy enough to get pregnant. And not only pregnant with 1 baby, but 2 babies. So it was really exciting to work with Gail through this process because, first of all, in the state she came in with, I don't think she could have sustained a pregnancy, not alone taking care of 2 babies once they were born. So you can see her and her husband very happy here. The 2 other kids that they already had that she was already having trouble keeping up with. And then the success is the end. This is what gets me really excited. So many people, when they reach out to me, they have this huge frustration when it comes to their health. So one of my favorite sayings is frustration is the gap between the experience and the expectation. Write that down. Frustration is the gap between the experience and the expectation. So you are on this call tonight because you're looking for information, but there's some frustration. Trust me, there's plenty of places you could be spending your time right now than being with me. There's something that is not working properly. So I want you to get some clarity around what that frustration is. What are you expecting? What are you experiencing? because once we get on the call, once we start working together, we're going to close that gap. Gail had no idea that the goal was to have enough energy to keep up with twins. But what she did know is she knew that laying on the couch all day, not being able to function, be the best wife and mother that she could be, were not in the cards for her, and that was not acceptable. So again, get clear on that because that's what pulls us to the result. We don't want to be running away from where we are. We want to be running towards where we want to go. It's one of the greatest things that we can do when it comes to health because guess what? It takes work to fix these things. And if we don't have something that we're working towards that we're excited about every day, it's almost like I'm pushing you up a mountain rather than you and I are running up the mountain together to help you get healthy. And that's the way we look at these things. We partner with you to get the results, but you're the one that does the work. We just give you the solutions to be able to do it. In our office, we have an approach that we follow, the four-phase approach that we talk about. And there's really specific levels that we look at. You're already starting this process, which is gathering information, being interactive, asking questions, scheduling your strategy call. The next visit is a new patient visit. That's the beginning of the process. Us getting an understanding of what that frustration gap is and helping you to close that and seeing what we can do to help partner with you to get those solutions. The next step is looking at your nervous system. We'll talk about each of these as we go forward, but the nervous system is really important in allowing your body to function as efficiently as possible. If you are away from our office or a distance patient, no problem. What we do is we find a chiropractor in your area and we find somebody that can assess this and get us the information that we need. We take care of patients from all over the country. This is very common practice for us and has proven very effective. Next thing we look at is the gut. They call this the second brain. If the gut's not working properly, then your immune system is damaged, your neurotransmitters are damaged, you can be anxious, depressed, not digesting food properly. You could be taking all the best supplements in the world and you're not even getting them into your body because you're not absorbing them. So that's a big deal. We got to look at the gut before we lay the foundation. And then the liver. The liver works with detox processes as well as hormone um, activation. So we want to make sure that the hormones are able to be activated to their active form, which is where many of those processes occur in the liver. And then hormones. Hormones are basically the money that pays the bills. And the bills are inflammation, toxicity, stress, infections. So if those things aren't working properly, those hormones are going to be depleted. Then your body's not going to be able to restore, heal, and do the other things possible. And eventually, as you know, and hear about often, if the hormones are off, it could lead to hormone cancers and other types of things that we don't want to deal with down the road. So if we can get ahead of that, that's great. And then the last thing is wellness. Wellness is the part of care where patients now have got out of debt, so to speak. Their symptoms are gone. They're feeling great. And now they know all the tips and the tricks and the tools to be able to do this. But again, we partner with them long term just to maintain that. So I might meet with them for 1 hour every year, like 4 15-minute calls. We look at what's going on, address any concerns, read a lab, order a lab, look at these different types of things and get them the answers. So let's talk about them all a little bit more in detail. Let's talk about the nervous system. The reality is your brain controls everything in the body. So for your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for you to move your leg, for you to be hearing me right now, for you to be taking any notes from anything I talk about or write in the chat, all of that is controlled by your brain. So if I were to sever my spinal cord, I wouldn't be able to function anywhere from below where that damage is. So as a chiropractor, I look at things in terms of above, down, inside, out. So if there's damage, I'm always going to start with the brain, and then I'm going to look at where there could be interference in that spine that's causing damage. Just like if you were paralyzed at the waist, you would only lose the legs down. Whereas if it's the neck, it's the whole body. Okay. So when we look at this, obviously you're not paralyzed or you haven't had complete damage to the spinal cord where it's cut off. What we're looking for is if there's any pressure or interference that isn't allowing the nervous system to function as well as possible. If we can find that interference and remove it, the body's going to respond a whole lot better. What it does really is it saves you a lot of time and energy in the whole process, because it's like me working with the lights on rather than me working with the lights off if I'm trying to repair something. If the lights are on, I'm going to be faster, more efficient, and do everything better. Uh, the nervous system also needs to see areas so that the body knows where to do that healing. So that's really important. The next thing is gut health. We talked about this a little bit in the last slide, but 90% of your immune system is in your gut. Gail, when we talked about her story, she had two infections in the gut that nobody had found. They were creating tremendous damage. When those infections are in there, they cause what they call the leaky gut or intestinal permeability. They cause irritation to the gut. And then what happens if there's enough damage is those infections will actually get in the blood. They can increase risk of autoimmune conditions, food allergies, leaky brain, which is really another thing that they're looking at now, which is toxicity, just like the leaky gut, can start to damage that lining in the brain, which can cause brain fog, trouble focusing, memory issues. So we want to make sure we address that. And it creates inflammation throughout the entire body. So we really need to make sure we're addressing the gut. The reason we address the gut before the liver and the hormones, and why this is so important, is if the gut is damaged and there's that leakiness there, and we haven't got rid of the infections, and we've now moved on to the liver detox, what happens, do you think, when you push those liver detoxers out and those toxins are leaving the body, and now there's still holes in the gut? The reality is they can go through those holes as well, just like those infections, and they can cause tremendous amounts of stress to the body. Immune system response triggered, activate autoimmune issues. So it's not the best way to do it. Can it be done? Sure, but it's much less efficient. It's usually much less comfortable. So many patients, if you're listening to this right now and you have done a detox and you didn't feel so good, or you don't feel like it really got the result that you were looking for, most likely it's because you went out of order and you didn't work on the gut first, and there's some damage in the gut. So that's the next step, looking at the gut. Then we want to look at the liver. Once we know the gut's doing well, we've sealed up that leaky gut, everything is healed properly, and the microbiome, the bacteria are normal inside the gut. We've got rid of any infections. Then we want to work on the liver. We want to push those toxins out. What happens is your body will store toxins inside of fat. So, in order to get them out of the body, we need to go through some specific processes to get them water soluble so that the body then can remove them. So that process we take you through, it's doctor guided, and you'll get the best results on a detox that you've ever had, because not only will it be specific to you, which you'll see a little bit more later in our testing, but you have laid the groundwork and the foundation with these first two phases to continue to build on this and make sure that this is as effective as possible. The other reason we work on the liver second is this is where many of your hormones are sent to be converted to their active form. So, patients with thyroid issues, patients with sex hormone issues, estrogen, progesterone, oftentimes the liver is one of the main reasons that you're not getting the benefits that you need, even if you're doing hormone treatment, taking hormone replacement therapy, um, levothyroxine, medications. If you're not getting the result after doing the medication, lots of times it's a conversion issue in the liver. So there's two big things we want to work on in the liver, and that's why it's in the next step. And the last thing is hormones. Hormones are really important. Again, it's how your body pays the bills. The reason we do it last is because if all these other issues aren't corrected, we can keep putting in hormones, but it's going to keep being depleted. It's like adding money to a bank account and somebody's robbing you on the backside. It doesn't make sense to continue to add more money to try to keep up. It makes sense to stop the robber. Then we assess what the amount is. Then we start to build the fund. So that's important. That's the last step. Once this is in place, you're going to feel a whole lot better. So this is something to know about with hormones too. If you're not feeling well, this is usually a hormone issue. If it's an immune system issue, usually you feel fine, but you get very sick. So think about patients that were diagnosed with cancer. Usually they feel fine, then they're diagnosed with something, and then they're dead quickly. So the immune system is a concern when that's a problem because you don't usually know. It's more of the silent killers. The thing with hormones is you don't get very sick. So you'll live forever with these problems usually, but you'll just feel horrible. So if you're having a lot of symptoms, uh, trouble sleeping, irritation, brain fog, energy issues, slow recovery after exercise, these are signs that the hormones aren't working the way that they're supposed to. The other thing I want to tell you is if you look at these trees, the reason we have it like this and why I set up this slide this way and created it is because as you build on these things, the roots get stronger. So, health and disease are both processes. Every decision you make that's good is a deposit, every bad decision you make is a withdrawal. Lots of patients think my health stays stagnant because they base it off of how they feel, meaning they'll look at day to day or last week or last month and they'll go, I feel about the same. The reality is there's always changing. It's just a slow process. The good thing about health is it's also a process. So as you're building these things, understand that the work you're putting in is a long-term sustainable benefit. Whereas a medication doesn't actually fix the problem, it's just kicking the can down the road, usually making these things worse, but it's not giving you a stronger root or a stronger foundation for actual health that you're going to be able to benefit from down the road. Now, we talked about withdrawals. I want you to think about this now. There's 3 T's that we need to start avoiding. And again, if you do nothing beyond listen to this talk and add in one thing, I want you to think about this slide. Traumas, toxins, and thoughts. These are the 3 T's. These are the stressors. These are the ones that come and damage the tree, damage the roots, and damage your health. Okay? So I want you to think about this mindset. Anybody had any stress? Write in the chat if you had any stress today. Any stress last week or last month? I think we live in the most stressful time in our entire civilization. I feel like stress is getting more and more. The world is going faster and faster. There's more and more responsibilities, more bills, all these different types of things. So mindset is really important. Just taking time to offset that. If it's a really busy day, go for a walk, do some meditation, some prayer, Bible, read a book, take a bath, whatever it is, make sure that you're putting in the time to offset that. Again, and be very intentional. At the end of the day, just take 2 minutes and say to yourself, did I do more good or bad today? If you did more bad, get back on track tomorrow. If you did more good, celebrate. It's a big win. Okay. Even though you don't feel it, it's a big win and you're moving in the right direction. Toxins. This is the hardest one. It's in your air, it's in your water. This is the one you cannot avoid no matter what you try. You could eat organic food all the time, never smoke, never drink, and do everything possible that you can. Toxins are still coming in. As the we talked about the detox process that we bring patients through, that's a 30-day process. So it's a little bit longer. But once we get to the place of wellness with patients, usually patients will do 1 to 2 10-day detoxes each year. So once we get this corrected, then we can keep on track with this because again, you want to keep on track and do obviously as much as you can with healthy lotions and other types of things and taking care of yourself, but you still got to get out the toxins that are coming in with just your normal day-to-day lifestyle things that you're doing. And then trauma. Trauma would be anything that's like a fall, heavy backpack for your kids, sports growing up, accidents, poor posture at work. Any of these things, trouble sleeping, bad sleep posture, any of these things cause trauma to the spine and can cause damage to the body. So we want to, again, look at minimizing these 3, the thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And we want to do the opposite, which is build on the opposite of these things, put in healthy things into our body. Make sure we're taking care of our posture. Make sure we're taking time to manage our stress and look at these things. The thing which makes our process so effective is oftentimes we don't know what things are creating the biggest damage. And that's where testing gives us the upper hand to be able to really customize these plans specifically to you and what your needs are. Because some people are more affected by a poor posture than others. Some people are more affected by toxicity than others. And if we know exactly where those markers are, Then we can create a customized plan to get you there a whole lot faster. So there's really three things when we look at the solution. We got to identify where the problem is. Which thought trauma toxin is it that is causing the biggest problem? Then we have to remove it, right? Many patients come to me that have been to practitioners that have done these first two steps really well, but never did this last step, which is heal. Now, if you identify and you remove the trigger, you're going to be in a much better place than if you don't, okay? Because you're not making more damage. But if I had 10 holes in the wall behind me and I stopped the person that was damaging the wall, but I never fixed the wall, it's good. There's not more holes coming. It would be 20 holes if I didn't do something, right? So again, it's good. But if I never then call somebody in to fix those, anytime that I start to do something wrong again, I'm going to experience that pain. So to truly get it fixed, you got to do all three of these in the right order. And that's really important. The other thing I see with so many people is they'll come into me and they will go in the wrong order. So they've done actually all the right tests and all the right things to fix it, just out of order. I want you to think about if I were to fix one of those holes in my wall and I were to paint it and then sand it rather than sand it and then paint it, I'm going to get a completely different result. One's going to look horrible, one's going to look great. So the order really matters. The other thing I find with patients is when they identify and they remove it, but they don't actually heal it, they need to stay on supplementation for a long time, just like the medication, because they haven't fixed the problem. So I have patients that call me that are on $200, $300, $400 a month supplementation, and the plan with the naturopath or the other chiropractor or medical doctor or functional medicine specialist, what their plan is now that's the solution long term. And sometimes these patients are open to it because they would rather do that than be on a medication because there's no side effects. But now they're spending $4,000 a year, which is worth it to be healthy and to move towards things. But if you can come off of those things and come up with a long-term plan, you're saving $40,000 over the next 10 years. So that's a big deal. So that's important as we work on the process and closing that gap that we talked about. Now, the other thing that makes our office so exciting as we work through is the testing. So we're going to do very specific testing to you. Our process, think about it like a college course. We're going to educate you as to what each of the labs mean so that you understand what they are and you know exactly what you're doing. For me, if I'm taking a supplement or an herb or I'm working on something, I want to know exactly what that thing is doing, have a plan so that I can come off of it, know that it's fixed, and then move to the next step. So it's very methodical. So it's a lot like a college course. There's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an end. Our programs typically go for 6 to 12 months. So we're not talking, 5, 10 years, which is probably how long the damage has been there, if not longer. The body heals a whole lot faster once we put these things in place. Again, as long as you're following the protocols and doing what you need, and we identify it and remove these things and stop making the damage. So that's a big deal. The testing gives us direction. Then it's an individualized process. So even though we have that structure, everybody's going to need different things. And the test is what tells us what those things are. So no patient that goes through our program has the same protocols. Everybody's different. There's still a beginning, there's still a middle, there's still an end. We're still working on the nervous system and the gut and the liver and the hormones in that order, but the structure and the care is different for everybody. Then we have a team approach. Not only will you get a lot of support through social media posts, other patients that are going through similar experiences. Our front end, she's incredible. She will answer all your questions, get response to email. You're never going to feel like a number in the practice. You're also going to get accountability. We're going to hold you accountable to the goals that you want to set so that we hit those. Again, this is up to you. You determine what that frustration gap is to you. But our goal is to be here to help you hit those targets and encourage you when you're struggling and congratulate you when you're doing well so that at the end of the day, you achieve those goals that you're trying to work towards or get really close and are moving in the right direction so that you feel like I did a great job. This was worth the investment. I have never had a patient go through our program and at the end of the program go, Doc, I really wish you didn't push me. I really wish I didn't get these great results and put the last 6 to 12 months of time into getting healthy. And then empowerment. I want you to learn so much and be so confident in your health that you rely on me less and less. Okay. That's one of the biggest differences in our office compared to the other, the medical profession or even holistic providers that aren't actually fixing the problem. I want you to have us in your corner, utilize us very little because now you know what to do for you and your family. Now, if you did not schedule a strategy call yet, I encourage you to do that. Schedule a strategy call. If we said something you have questions about, if you just want more clarity on something, make sure to schedule that strategy call now. We'd love to talk to you about that. Let's talk about Julie. So Julie came into our office, and these are some of the symptoms that she came up with: high stress, constipation, mood swings, low energy, headaches, and weight gain. This is a lot. Julie was really frustrated. She really wanted to work on her health, close that frustration gap. So, what did we do? We started with some testing. We started to work on some answers that were going to help her body to heal and move in the right direction. So, I want you to write in the chat. Give me a option one, option two, or option three. What diet do you think would help Julie the most? Do you think a keto diet would be most effective, a paleo diet, or Weight Watchers? Again, just base it off of her symptoms and give the option you think would be best. Now, here's something I want you to think about. I'm going to share with you now the first test that we would look at. We looked at with Julie, and we would look at with you as well. You can see that there's different foods that cause different irritations and damage and chronic inflammation to her body. You can see on the severe side, which is the ones that cause the most damage, she has avocados there. Now, avocados are approved and encouraged on all three of those plans. The reason I give this example is Julie is very typical of the patient we see. If you could have just done one of those plans, got results, followed through, didn't need accountability, it wasn't working for you, you would already have the results you're looking for. Many patients call me and either they haven't been able to stick to a plan, so they need the accountability and support, or they actually did the right things and didn't get the results. Okay. Julie would be one of those people because she's doing everything she thinks is right. She's following the structure of the plan, but it's not specific to her. And it's going to work for her friend. It's going to work for other people she sees. And she's going to get really frustrated because she's going to feel like she's doing something wrong. And she is, but she doesn't have the full picture. Right. So we want to take Julie now and we want to come up. Let's say she wants to do keto or paleo, or we decide what option makes the most sense. Now we can take that structure and say, okay, these are the foods that are going to benefit you the most. These are the ones that are going to hurt you. And we can create a customized nutrition plan for Julie. Now, this is the second test we look at. This is still part of healing the gut, is we look at the stool test. So what you can see is, remember I said with Gail at the beginning, she had those 2 infections. This patient has 3 infections inside their digestive tract. Actually 4. 1 is dysbiotic, 3 commensal infections. Their good bacteria is low. Some of them even have no growth, which means they can't repopulate. That could have been from an antibiotic or something like that, but that needs to be corrected. And then they have 2 yeast overgrowths inside their gut. So Julie is not going to do very well. First of all, she's eating foods that are causing chronic inflammation. She has infections in there which are not going to go away until they're treated and taken care of. She is in a losing battle no matter what without this testing. So this testing now is going to now give us the answers to go in and continue to heal the gut, again, with very specific answers. So not only this test that we use comes up with what those infections are, so we know what the problem is. Remember, the next step is now remove after we identify it. So this one is not a lifestyle change. This one is actually a treatment, just like an antibiotic, but we use natural antibiotic killers or antivirals to work on these things. or to deal with the yeast. So we use all natural treatments. What the test will actually do is they will take those infections, grow them in a petri dish in the lab, and then they will use the natural treatments that I come up with to kill those so that we can target them. And they will send me a report that will tell me, and you can see this in the top graph, the ones that are going to be the most effective to killing it. Then we have a very specific strategic plan to go in and kill those infections so that they're gone. And then we can make sure that those are clear, gut is healed, no questions anymore with those infections. And again, many of these infections, because they're low level, they don't cause symptoms all the time that would make you to think to look there. And the insurance testing that is done at your medical office typically doesn't pick up on these. So you need to do a more advanced test to get these answers that insurance doesn't cover. Let's look at hormones now. So at this point with Julie, we had taken her through the process. We removed those foods. We healed the gut. We brought her through a liver detox, and now her hormones were still really off. So what this tells us is, one, her cortisol levels are really low. If your cortisol levels are really low, you're going to feel tired all day long. Remember, I said this is the money that pays the bills. So she had all of these bills, right? She had those infections. She was eating foods that were causing chronic inflammation at least every week, if not every day. And she was creating damage and depleting these hormones. So she had no ability to heal, no ability to recover from these things. And the levels were just low. Every time her body built some up, it was used up. So this is what caused her to have this drop in energy all throughout the day. The other thing we look at is how those hormones are metabolized. So something that happened with Julie that we found, and we see with lots of females, is as those hormones are metabolized, if they haven't been properly managed and they've been damaged for so long, is they are creating hormones in a ratio that puts you at a risk of cancer in the future. Meaning, I'm not saying Julie has cancer by looking at this. That's not something I can diagnose or get off of this test. But what I can do is I can tell Julie, if you continue to live like this and your hormones stay like this, you're at a much higher risk for cancer than if we get them fixed. So with Julie, what we wanted to do now is make sure that once those other areas are fixed, make sure these hormones are in the right balance, they're built up properly, the body's healing, and they're in the right ratios so that now her body is able to function, thrive, and peace of mind, not a risk for cancer moving forward. Many of my patients have already had cancer. So for them, this is even a more important test because just remember, thoughts are one of the things that stress us out and create disease. If we measure these hormones once a year and now we can show the patient, all right, your environment for creating cancer again is now very low, huge peace of mind for these patients, and really just give some encouragement for those patients so that they know, all right, not only am I in control of this, empowered, and I'm working on this, but it's actually making a difference, and I can see that on the lab. And all the labs we use are third-party tested, so these are not things that I come up with. We send them out to medical facilities. The medical doctors run the labs. They send them back. How we interpret them is what makes us so different in building the plans with you. And then this is another one. So this showed that Julie still had some toxicity in her body. We had to do a little bit more work on the detox side. And at the bottom, there's some oxidative stress. So the environment that she was in was actually risking cancer even more. So once she got to 5.2, that's a much higher risk. So if I see those first two numbers are higher risk, then I look at this number, oxidative stress. If this is also higher or off the limits, much more concern, much more urgency to get this fixed, making sure we get it corrected, because it's again, it means that the damage has been there even longer. So Julie ended up doing very well with the program we took her through. She healed, her body got healthy. And again, just like I said, nobody ever gets through the program and says, I really wish you didn't find those 2 yeast infections, the 4 infections in my gut, got rid of them and helped me to come up with a nutrition plan so I'm not banging my head against the wall, thinking I'm doing the right things and not getting the results. So that's it, guys and ladies. If you have not scheduled your strategy call, this is the time. I want you to know the strategy call is free, as we talked about. It is with my program director. She will bring you through and answer any questions you have. She created this program with me, and she is phenomenal. She'll be able to answer any of your questions. At that call, you will be given the option to schedule a new patient visit with me for only $99. That visit's going to be 30 to 45 minutes. We will look at labs. We will go through your frustration gap. We will come up with a plan. I will tell you what testing looks like, what the cost is, um, ballpark. I don't know exactly what the cost is, but you'll have a very good idea for your program what the cost will be. So you'll have all of that answered for the $99 and then can make a decision. Um, that amount of time, depending on how many labs you send me, what your intake looks like, and what we're trying to create, could spend somewhere between $600 to $800 in value. So it's a tremendous value. I just ask this of you. One, if you schedule the strategy call, please show up. Even though it's free for you, it's not free for me and my team. I'm paying my team to be there. They're going to show up ready to answer your questions. I just ask you show up ready and prepared to be able to really share what those challenges are, questions, so that we can make sure that that's very effective. The other thing is there's, again, hundreds, if not thousands of people who do this webinar every month. If you're going to schedule and then not show up, you're taking that spot from somebody else that needs it. We have limited spots. Make sure you get scheduled and make sure you keep that appointment. The other thing is make sure you follow the instructions that my program director gives you on that visit to get in your paperwork, share any labs. It's going to make our new patient visit so much more effective. And make sure you show up on time, because I'm going to show up on time. We're going to get through this. We're going to answer all the questions. I want to make sure that you're getting hundreds of dollars of value out of that call, and you're going to have a call to action and know what to do. And you know what? If I can't help you, I'll tell you that as well. And I'll help you come up with a solution for where the next step is. The thing, again, that makes our office so different is our approach. We give you the process. Our testing gives you the direction. So we know exactly where to go with this thing. Our consults give you answers and support and the encouragement you need. Between the chiropractic care, the supplements, and the lifestyle recommendations, you get the results. And the last thing, which I love, is you determine the healing. So if cost is one thing you're really concerned about with this, the better you do, the better you follow my recommendations. That is how you keep the cost low, right? You bet better recommendations, you follow that, you're going to get better results. And that's it. So give me a thank you or a yes, I learned something in the chat. That would be so helpful. And I'm really excited to see you guys on the other side. Have a wonderful